I'm Mark Gagan, and you're listening to a special episode of the Voice of Insurance podcast, produced in association with VIPR. Today's a really enjoyable episode because I'm talking to someone of vast insurance market experience who is getting a shot at putting that deep knowledge and acquired wisdom into really useful practice. Greg Massey has had an insurance career spanning 4 decades that culminated as head of programs at Zurich North America. On his retirement in 2022, he became an advisor to VIPR to help the company with its US expansion plans. This is a great match because in this role, Greg is able to bring his experience to bear to introduce US Delegated Authority and Program Management industry peers to the products and solutions that VIPR has been providing to that same community in the London market for almost 15 years. Greg is a great professional, and this podcast is a masterclass on best practice in the application of technology for solving core operational problems and generating a genuine data-driven edge in this burgeoning market segment. Greg is also excellent company and is incredibly open and generous with his insights. Half an hour with him will fly by and give you a large number of practical ideas you can apply to your own business. Enjoy the podcast. Greg, welcome to the Voice of Insurance.
I'm so glad to be here.
Anyone who doesn't know you, why don't you introduce yourself to them? Tell us about your career to date and how you came into your current role.
I've been in business about 40 years now, all on the company side. And the last third of my career was Zurich, both home office roles, and much of my career was market-facing roles, running P&Ls. And the last half of my career at Zurich was running the delegated programs, program administration, one of the largest in the program space. So it's given me an opportunity when I retired 2 years ago from a great company, Zurich. VIPR reached out to me, given my background and industry involvement, and asked if I would join them as a U.S. advisor. So I do work with them quite a bit. I'm going on my 3rd year. I attend industry conferences with them in selling their product. So let me just share with you what VIPR is, what they provide, and some of the solutions that they share. What they do, VIPR, who's based in London, started about 15 years ago. And basically the solution, technology solution for bordereau reporting for Lloyd's and other UK carriers. And they came into the US about 2.5 to 3 years ago. I joined them just over 2 years ago in bringing their bordereau solutions to the market. Now, receivers of information tend to be their target audience. That would be carriers, reinsurers, fronting carriers, and captives. However, program administrators, MGUs, MGAs certainly have a need, and also TPAs have a need for bordereau reporting. And that's the leading product that VIPR provides. Of course, they have other products as well that's along data insights, managing data, cleansing data, and also aiding those firms in sanitizing their data into something that's usable, something that's consumable for their use for additional insights. That's it in a nutshell.
I knew of them at that 10 or 15 year ago period. And of course, London has the bordereau ingestion problem probably greater than anybody else because often London is so much further along the chain. There may be an extra broker at least thrown into that chain that they all feel even more isolated from that original risk and some of those submissions and getting that data. But it's really interesting to hear that you would have been a potential customer of VIPR's, and that knowledge, having managed one of the largest books in the States of program administration business, delegated business, is that what attracted you to VIPR? Is it because you really know that they're trying to solve a problem that is really painful for you over the years?
That is a major pain point. So receivers of information get their information in a delayed fashion, maybe not as accurate. VIPR can build business rules in there to help trigger things that are outside the authority of the program administrator or MGU to help trigger that, to correct it or address it. The other thing that VIPR helps, and it's a major pain point, is just systems integration. Believe it or not, there's MGAs, MGUs out there that still submit either on Lotus Notes, and the most common whatever that is nowadays, or Excel, amongst other data transfer. What VIPR does, they have partnerships with Sickish, Insurity, and Guidewire, which helps with the integration of systems. And they've integrated with many different systems, so it's more seamless for the sender of the information and comes in really a consumable and sanitized format to the receiver of the information. let's face it, the delegated space or insurance and program space is really a game of margins. So there's only 100 pennies in every dollar. How do you manage that from a profitability standpoint, whether you're on the MGA side or the carrier side? So using VIPR can reduce anywhere from a third to half to 2/3 of the staffing that's on either the sender side or the receiver side of sanitizing that information and bringing it more into a consumable format and reconciling that information. The thing is, it's not necessarily about reducing headcount. It's about how do we deploy this talent and headcount to help us drive a much greater return. Or on the flip side, being able to look at the data and get insights. We're not short on data in this business, but we are short on insights. And if you talk to anyone on the MGA side, or even folks on the market-facing side, they get insights all the time, but they will be the first to admit that a lot of insights that they get aren't very insightful at all. So basically, VIPR helps bring the parties together to be able to do something with the data, but it has to come in very clean. It has to come in real time, in a quick fashion, so the carrier can get paid. And so then the information can be done with, other than using stale information, which might be a year old. That's what attracted me to VIPR.
When we're talking about relatively marginal business, sometimes things are not going to be that much below 100. When you can free up any kind of margin on the costs, it's fantastic. And also, it's not a very appealing job to have to cleanse data and to go into a whole relearn how to use Lotus Notes. It's far more interesting to have the high added value part to say, all that data's been sorted out, and now I can actually go through it and try and add some value, because that's a far more interesting job. If we can get rid of the dull, boring stuff, and if VIPR can get rid of the boring stuff, then actually we can get straight to adding the value. And of course, everyone can be happy then, because we can really get the insights that are actually going to make us more skillful underwriters, which is what we all want to do in the first place. When you're out with VIPR, what are you spending most of your time doing? Is it just making those introductions, the fact that you know so many people after 4 decades in the business? Or are you helping to hone the offering that VIPR's got?
Much of my time is making the introductions. I do attend target markets, which is the leading and maybe the only association that brings together cover holders, carriers, and program administrators. So it's a wonderful, wonderful organization. And they host an event, of course, in the fall and then mid-year. So I will attend those with them. And certainly I will be on sales calls with them. I'll be on some of their operational calls. And as they're dealing with market-facing folks, helping them bring about what their pain points may be, because I've lived them as well. So it really brings the rubber to the road as far as we've been there. You deal with a lot of these technology companies. Many of them may not have the experience of running a P&L on the insurance side, program administration side. And while I admit I've never been at work for a program administrator or MGA, I stay very close to my connections. I've worked with them to remain grounded on what their challenges are. So being involved in many of those calls, Mark, helps both parties resonate what the real pain points are. And how does that translate in helping you along those lines?
In terms of those pain points, are they the same as they've always been? Just that simple ingestion of insurance-related data? Or are there any new things that people are worrying about?
Well, the biggest pain point from both sides is trying to maintain a profitable portfolio. Outside of talent for any organization, who the capacity provider is for these program administrators, that's a huge asset for them. And they need to preserve that. So pain points leading to that to help them maintain that cover holder, so to speak, is certainly being able to stay ahead with insights and managing that portfolio. As long as you're making money, you generally don't have to worry about that cover holder being there. And many times, regardless of how difficult that portfolio may be. So I've been thoroughly impressed with the progression of talent that's been attracted to the program space, number one. Number two, the abilities. Many of these program administrators do really a stupendous job in managing data, managing their portfolio, staying ahead of the emerging issues within that vertical, and working with their partner carriers and staying out ahead of this to grow the portfolio. There's going to be years when it's unprofitable, but staying out in front of it and not having a repeatable unprofitability portfolio, which you will eventually lose. And carriers won't take that pain for too long. So the other things is just inconsistent data aggregation continues to be an issue, both on a receiver end and the sender end, which VIPR does help sanitize. The other things are just integration with the systems. I mentioned before, between Guidewire and Surety, some other technology solution carriers on a policy admin system, VIPR works very closely with. VIPR has built a very strong ecosystem. They are the leading provider from a bordereau solution, but that's just the beginning. 100% of their clients use the bordereau solution, but they also provide other added benefits as well. And that's further downstream to further sanitize, further use and develop insights that are useful. And the other pain points, regardless of the organization, is continuing to develop that talent. And it's interesting, there's a number of MGAs that have brought on data scientists, and data scientists will leave if the information routinely is not sanitized and it's good data to work with. They love data, but they want clean data to be able to do something with. They don't want to be in the maintenance mode. So partnering with VIPR helps with those solutions. And there's mutual challenges on both sides to optimize various portfolios.
You agree with the quarterly accounts. If it's always a balance in your favor, then you're always going to be happy. But I suppose at some point we all know that balance is not always going to be in your favor. But at the point where it starts to go negative, then that administrator says, look, we know why this is happening. We've already made the changes. You'll start to see that feed through in Q3, Q4, or Q1 next year. This is what we've done. We really value our relationship with you. If they've got those insights, they completely feel that administrator's on top of something, really on top of it. And obviously they've been profitable for many years. You've had this great relationship. Of course, you would immediately have a more favorable conversation. But if they just said, hey, sorry, we don't really know why it's gone negative, then you put it on your not sure if I'm going to be renewing this one list, wouldn't you?
That's right.
I think we all know that in this business, it's all about those relationships, and nurturing those good relationships is so important. And anything that can give someone a tool to get a handle on exactly what they're doing. And of course, this is their job. Their job is to administrate this portfolio on behalf of those carriers and to do so in a profitable way as the agent of the insurance company. Then anything that you can do here is kind of putting ammunition to keep those relationships fresh and to keep everybody on top of everything. So for example, in London, you've always got that regulatory concern or kind of quasi-regulatory organizations like Lloyd's of London looking over and saying, we need you to report this metric or that metric. Presumably in the States, it must be very similar, but sort of times 50.
It is. Yeah, you're right. And I know VIPR, they work with some of their, whether it's Guidewire, Surety, Sickish, certainly with regulatory challenges. And with the bordereau reporting, being able to trigger those types of things and extract that information for reporting purposes as well. So certainly a challenge out there for any program administrator or carrier. But systems such as VIPR will help normalize that. So it just becomes an operating and repeatable model to address regulatory concerns and make those edits within the data requirements.
Sometimes they're regulatory, or sometimes it's just that everybody's interested in a particular new thing they want to measure. I don't know, like wildfires or whatever. You know, if you suddenly create a new field, if you have flexible software that can do that kind of thing, then that's going to be extremely helpful. It's not something where you think, oh, goodness me, my systems aren't going to be able to cope with all this changing information requirements. And suddenly I need to report this, and then I need to report it in a different way. And I need to report it in a different state in a different way. And now the reinsurers of that insurance company are particularly interested in something else. So if I can provide them that data, we'll get more favorable terms, etc. It sounds like VIPR is on top of all this and is able to be a flexible solution for them.
They are, and they're willing to, and they do, modify the reporting and the data ingestion to the needs of whoever their client is. And right now they have over 50 clients and certainly growing quite rapidly. And their biggest growth right now is outside of the UK and over here in North America.
When you're out in the market, the star product, I presume it's the ingestion product.
Yeah, it's the trolley, which is the bordereau reporting. That's the start of the whole engine. Yep.
That's the product that VIPR's best known for. It's the go-to, the sort of standard bearer for the company. If I'm going to describe VIPR to anybody, to a third party who doesn't know them, I'll say, well, it's about managing those bordereaux. Where do you think it's going to be developing? I kind of presume it's going to be more into the analytics side of things and the being smart.
Yeah, that's what I think. And a couple of things is, and who knows where AI will optimize itself. And I know that VIPR is very close and they have some business partners that are aligned with the AI development. So not sure where that will end up, but they're close enough to it and staying on all those emerging issues. But from the standpoint of staying out in front of systems changes, policyholder administration systems, you have to have a strong ecosystem to allow for those changes. VIPR stays out in front of that from an emerging acquisition standpoint to make sure that they're aligned with any of the changes. So their system can talk with many other systems out there. So that's a possibility, number one, that's going to happen. Number two is just more useful data analytics, not just a data lake or data warehouse, but helping customers do something with that data and gaining insight from data scientists as well. So the start of it is getting it in an organized fashion, which, again, plenty of data out there. How do we sanitize it, bring it in? But I see down the road, 5 and 10 years, even more so integrated with many of these policy administration systems more seamlessly, number one. Number two, even more transparent. They can do it now, whether it's a TPA, carrier, reinsurer, and the MGA, with permission of each, being able to look at that information in real time. So moving things more to real time so the program administrators and carriers can act on information as opposed to react to information. Keep in mind, there's over 1 billion transactions that VIPR Systems handles today, and it's over 500,000 bordereaux being processed a year as well. And they don't sell their data. Everyone's data is unique to themselves. But I just think better leveraging and helping people integrate their data, manage it for useful and actionable insights. And I think that's the biggest void today out in the industry. Even folks that say they're doing it, the biggest complaint from people on the front line is we need useful insights. We need to be able to create action for impact and be able to do something right now in real time, as opposed to waiting 6 months, because that may be too late.
And it was really interesting you saying about that ability to look right through almost in real time from that reinsurer or that insurer looking through, because of course the processes that I remember not so fondly were opaque. Each one was a new stage. So I was a reinsurance broker in Spain, sending this to a wholesale broker in London. And then eventually 6 months after that, maybe the Lloyd's of London insurer would see what we had been doing on their behalf. And it was a crazy paper chain, but if they could have seen it straight away, they could have seen some of the problems.
Yeah, 6 months is way too long for anything. And, the program administrators are very, very open to insights and being able to enact change right now. They have their portfolio to protect, again, outside of their talent. That's their biggest asset. And they're extremely innovative. They're very open and they want to partner with their carriers. So there's tremendous opportunity to do something with the data. Again, we're not at a loss of data anywhere in the business. It's being able to do something with it to out-select and outprice the competition.
And of course, it's impossible to have a proper two-way relationship unless you can see what the other one's doing. Of course, you rely on the program administrators to usually be very specialist in something. But if the carrier is able to see what they're doing, they can also add some value by saying, you know what, actually, I've seen this happen before in another portfolio that I also got involved in. They can add their value, can say, hey, can we just check in, make sure that we're not making the same mistakes that we did somewhere else. And again, you can have that more interactive relationship and it's far more fruitful. But if you can't see it in real time, it just doesn't really happen. You can't add any value because it's already too late.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best example I've seen in managing portfolios is the program administrator and the carrier. They're on the same page. They recognize each brings something different to the table. Program administrators, again, very talented, know their industry or vertical that they're going after extremely well and know that industry generally better than the carrier. But the carrier's got a lot of resources and data scientists and the ability with partners of their reinsurers to help manage risk and total cost of risk as well. So the ideal situations is both being transparent and working together to optimize that portfolio.
So when you're talking to people, how do you get over the problem they just think it's going to be more cost?
The question comes down to build versus buy. And I will tell you that some situations, and VIPR is very upfront, if they're talking to a customer and they do a great job listening to the customer and their pain points, if they feel that they could build it versus buy it, they'll bring that up and say, hey, if you get to a point in time where you need us to buy closer to a plug and play, there's no such thing as a plug and play, as you well know, but something that's closer and you need our talent and our IT resources to help you, give us a call. And there have been situations like that where folks have said, I'm going to build, and a year or two later, there's no further along than when they talked about it a year or two ago, and they come to VIPR to help them with the solution. Those are great situations. Those are success stories. But our goal isn't to sell anyone on anything. It's to mutually partner with whoever that customer is to solve problems together and solve opportunities together. So it's helping them understand, because sometimes the market-facing folks are somewhat removed from all the noise back in the kitchen, what's going on, collecting the data, sanitizing it, sending it off or receiving it. And so through those dialogues and helping them get their operations folks at the table too, it does become quite transparent. And we also talk about how many people you have managing your data right now. And I'm talking about the bordereau, not the backroom data scientists. And when they say, oh, we have 2 full-time or 3 full-time people doing that, and the delay and the lack of efficiency, we talk through that and help them with some use cases and even go through some proof of concept situations to help them understand how easier is the VIPR solution relative to what they're doing. And at the end of the day, some people say, we like what we're doing and we're going to continue doing that. And that's fine. But we know they'll come back to us in another couple of years or so. Again, I'll repeat what I said earlier. It's a game of margins. And if you can do things that much more efficiently, you can get out there and compete in a better way against your competition. So it's about cost of doing business. And this is just one way of helping the program administrator or the carrier shave off some points from their cost of doing business.
And back in the old days, of course, you could buy software in a box. It did used to actually come in a box, didn't it, with a logo on it, and it had a little CD-ROM and a manual.
Mm-hmm.
But these days, software is part of a much broader relationship, and which is much more apt for the insurance industry, which is all about relationships. You're almost saying that you're another partner, and you're help bringing all these people together, aren't you? Helping those administrators, those MGAs, MGUs come together with their insurers and with those insurers and perhaps some of their reinsurers and other people. You're helping them all be in the room together, and you're not going anywhere. Basically, it's not like you've sold them this box and they put the CD-ROM in the drive and press install. Right. It's not like that anymore, is it? You're in this relationship for the long term.
Right. I'll just give you one more example where VIPR was meeting with a client. I was there, and this potential client, they're tied into their carrier. 100% of their business, they're using the carrier's system. No other business goes anywhere else. It's not shared and layered or anything along those lines. And in that situation, the receiver of the information, the carrier, the program administrator is already 100% using the same system that the underwriters would have used had there not been delegated authority. So in that situation, it just didn't make sense to come up with a bordereau reporting because essentially it's already in the system of the carrier. So again, I like VIPR's approach as an advisor for them here in the US, that they're not trying to go out there and sell something that may not bring value to the customer.
Yes, in a real-time world, who actually needs bordereau? You can create your own bordereau if you want them. Just because we always used to do it that way, at some point in the future, we might stop doing it that way because it's already in our system. We don't need to be presented with the information in that way. We could see a day when there wouldn't be any bordereau.
Absolutely, yeah. But the thing is, program administrators like to use their own system. And, if they're tied in 100% to a carrier, if that carrier changes ownership, changes appetite on that given program portfolio, or that portfolio becomes unprofitable, then that program administrator has to go out and buy a whole new policy admin system. So again, there's resistance on both sides to lock in to a given carrier system.
Greg, using your experience and such long experience and wisdom, what's the best way of getting the most benefit most quickly? Because there's something really good when you buy something new. If you can get a benefit straight away, it's a really good way of reinforcing that you made the right decision, that you don't get buyer's remorse. What's the best way of getting those early wins and sort of getting rid of the low-hanging fruit quickly?
I think our best customers are those that have a really disciplined project management system in place, process in place, and good operation folks. But they're not working in a vacuum. They're working with the front-facing folks that are managing that P&L as well. So it's more of a team approach on the, let's say, the carrier side or the MGA side, and being very disciplined and understanding what's to be delivered, when is it to be delivered, and what are the expectations of what we will get out of this, and constantly testing that. VIPR does a great job of reaching out to their customers. Where are you at the process? Are you getting this value from it? Because you should. And if you're not, how do we assert ourselves into the situation to help you benefit there? So I like that tenacious behavior at VIPR to constantly be pushing on customers, because as you all know, a lot of people will buy things and then it just kind of sits there, or it just becomes an expense. And that does us no good, because at the end of the day, someone's going to go in and say, what value are we deriving from this? So VIPR helps them, number one, get the value and live that value. So they're benefiting from it. And that's one way to validate what VIPR brings to the table. So I think from a project management standpoint, having an owner in managing the expectations and deliverables along the whole life cycle, and just touching base back with VIPR and vice versa to make sure there's real value being delivered here. Because at any point in time, there's going to be someone cynical that says, you know what, we can build this ourselves. And we know how that ends up most of the time. And we just don't want to be another vendor. We want to be an integral part of creating value in a profitable portfolio.
You mentioned earlier about ecosystems, and it's really interesting. An advent within insurance software, perhaps it's something that's in other segments, in other vertical sectors around the world has already been more current, but it's something that's certainly got currency in the last few years. Talking about ecosystems within insurance solutions, it sounds like the industry has come to an agreement with itself that this is the best way of doing things. That VIPR, for example, you can't be all things to all people. Why would you get into big policy admin systems when there's great providers of that and those are very embedded systems? But you should be giving choice to those customers. It's better if we all collaborate together rather than pretend that we could do everything. It seems to be that the message with ecosystems. Do you agree with that analysis? Is this the way forward, that we're going to be seeing a lot more of these ecosystems of you collaborating with so many other different providers?
That's right. Let's face it. We don't dictate to the market. It dictates to us. We don't want to be a policy admin company. That's not what we do. We know what we do. We do it well. How do we partner with other folks that do what they do very, very well and bring a more holistic solution to the program administrators or the carriers? So we constantly build on that. We're working very closely with some AI consultants and vendors to help us strategically as to where we may be going. But I think VIPR has always done a great job of that networking and building their ecosystem along the way. From a cycle standpoint, sometimes it takes longer than others. Where can we fit together here? And how can we work together? We just announced with Sikish, which is a technology solution company, where we partner with them. We're very close with Guidewire and Insurity, who are leaders in their space. So we're pretty discriminatory who we want within our ecosystem. And that's an ongoing process. And VIPR's been doing that for 15 years. And building it and forging these relationships. And I don't see that changing. I see them continuing to do that in the upcoming years as well, which will allow us to support the vendors that we partner with, and also inherently their salespeople for us as well, as we bring a solution together. So I've been most impressed with that. So it's not new to them. It's kind of old hat, and it's just within their DNA as to how they approach the market.
Nothing like being ready. And obviously you want to help your customers, don't you? If you know they use Guidewire and they use Insurity, there's no point saying, hey, we could get round to integrating with them one day. You'd say, no, we know you've used Guidewire and Insurity, and here it is. It's already pre-integrated. It works with them already, because you want to solve people's problems. You don't want to give them a whole set of new problems.
There's plenty of that going around.
Well, it's really common sense when we talk about it like this. But of course, it's sometimes surprising that, of course, it's taken 50 years of this to get to this stage where people realize that you can't do everything for everybody. It'd be far better if we all collaborated and worked in this digital age where we can. We can connect everything together and everyone can specialize in what they're really good at and where they can add the most value. And you're right to say it's all about being customer centric ultimately. It's the market dictating to us rather than us telling them what they can buy. Probably the last question would be, Where do you think this is going? And what VIPR's doing is helping to automate what were very manual processes. And we've talked about AI and other things. Where do you think this could go in terms of how far that whole insurance value chain could be automated at some point, especially someone who's seen it slowly automate over the period of your career? Where do you think this could be going?
Well, I think a number of carriers today, how do we make the acquisition, risk selection, and or pricing less painful for the customer? And I think, again, we have all the data that we need, whether within our own data lake or through third-party vendors out there. So do we really need to 20 question customers to death or brokers to death? How do we narrow that down? So just give me the bare amount of information and we will be able to get a policy issued and manage it at that portfolio level. And I know some carriers say they do it now. That's very, very few. The switching cost is just way too painful. So I think there's opportunity along those lines, number one. Number two, I think as these program administrators, and if you ever have the opportunity to go to target markets, I think you'd be thoroughly impressed with the folks that are there, the program administrators, whether they're startup or they've been longstanding. And there's a reason why it's growing. The talent is incredible. And a lot of these folks have worked for carriers in the past. It's really innovative thought. And I think the partnership between the carriers and the program administrators and MGAs will help bring better solutions in risk pricing and risk selection. So it's not as painful. And the focus can be on growing, helping total cost of risk for the customers overall, and just growing that portfolio profitably and not be in a constant state of having to reshop that portfolio, constant state of reshaping that portfolio and constantly reacting. So I think solutions that VIPR brings amongst Insurity, Guidewire, et cetera, help facilitate the prospective acting before anything emerges around these portfolios. I just see way too many examples where carriers getting off of programs and they've just had it, or program administrators, they've got to shop a program because it just isn't driving a profit. And a lot of times the answer isn't just to charge more premium. You got to look at terms and conditions, bring better information to the customers to help them manage their risk and staying out in front. And that's the biggest challenge that I see. But I think things that VIPR will bring to the table, continues to bring to the table, will help manage that process. So it's less painful all around. So folks can focus more on growing profitably and looking and innovating in new markets versus spending time locked down at the office trying to fix a problem. It's always easier not to have to fix a problem and stay out in front of it and then grow your business than being locked down, and shrinking your way to greatness never works. So how do you get really innovative and use the information that's already there in an efficient manner so that portfolio is sustainable? That's how we see it.
Greg, thank you so much for bearing with me and give me the benefit of all that experience.
Thank you, Mark. It's always a pleasure spending time with you. Keep up the great work with your Voice of Insurance. I love it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, don't forget to subscribe or leave a like or a review or recommendation on whatever podcast platform you used to access this program. These really help get the word out. Before we go, just a quick reminder that advertising slots are available here and in other places in the Voice of Insurance podcasts. Podcasting is the fastest growing medium and attracts a high quality audience of key decision makers. It's also an intimate medium where you, the listener, are right in the room with me and the interview subjects. Needless to say, that means it's a great way of getting your message out directly to an audience because you know you've got their full attention. It's also very cost effective. So get in touch with Mark at thevoiceofinsurance.com to find out how you could be speaking directly to the industry. Voice of Insurance is produced by me, Mark Gagan. Music was written by Anna Gagan and produced by Carlos Gagan. Check out more podcasts and written comment pieces at www.thevoiceofinsurance.com.